I'm
right?
just, yeah, I still like to hustle, but maybe not quite as much.
Yeah, we gotta get our kids doing it, hustling for us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's the goal, right?
Well,
Um,
I just bought a note that's in bankruptcy,
okay.
and so bankruptcy chapter 13,
Yep.
and I'm telling you, it's like you do all your due diligence, and chapter 13 bankruptcy, it's a performing note,
Oh,
and I got it I got it at a substantial discount. And then I was able to reach out, or the borrower actually reached out to me because what I did was I got in contact with the attorney of the BK attorney, and I
let
sent
me just real
her.
quick pause for a second. Those who don't know, he's saying you cannot reach out to your borrower if they're in bankruptcy. They
Right.
must speak
Very
to their
careful.
attorney. Do never speak to the borrower in BK. Sorry.
Yep. And so exactly, and so I reached out to the to her attorney, just introducing myself, just saying, hey, I'm the new owner of this note. I want to go ahead and try to do a loan modification, because looking over the all the bankruptcy documentation, I just felt like the plan set her up for failure, and I just said I wanted to go ahead and just modify this loan for her. And if you could just have her, if you could talk to her, and then talk to my attorney, and then let's just get it figured out. She sent the email to her, the borrower called me, and she was literally crying on the phone.
Awesome.
I mean, it's seeing, that's the thing. It's such a good feeling to be able to help somebody that's going through such a traumatic experience, in their lives. It's amazing. But, just 100%, I
Yeah.
kind of got off tangent, but 100% do all your due diligence, before you buy the note.
BK, I know Nathan's not big on it. I love BK because you're getting the constant payment of the mortgage payment, but you're also getting the rear with like a bonus kick on it, right? You hate when BK uses a tool to avoid foreclosure. I get that. But when it's payment, it's awesome. I think we answered John's question is where your notes are coming from. Most of the time they come from banks, hedge funds, and other investors who are out there. And you're getting it for marketing. People,
Right.
Companies I see in part of this the live feed here. Let's see some more marketing from you guys. I'd like to see Astonishment saying, wow, I've seen his name out there constantly. You may not remember where you saw it from, but if the name stands out because you've seen so much of it, and understand that the algorithms through these social medias,
Right.
you make post 3 times a day and no one saw it.
Yep.
It's just what it is. We had a question from Gene Davis that throughout the years, you created an SOP or process map that walks you through the due diligence. How do you walks you through how do you do your due diligence? How do you tell if a note is worth offering on? Okay. How do you know if a note is worth making a bid on it? I guess the question.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of like, I guess that's a subjective question, because it's one that I might find, acceptable. Dave or Nathan may just like, we're going to pass on it. That's where it's subjective. And that's where I got to look at it on a note by note basis. If something can be cured, and that's why I 100% rely on my attorney, because even though it looks good to me, within the collateral file, I'll send it over to my attorney. He goes, well, wait a minute, it's missing, whatever, X, Y, and Z. We can't fix this. And then I go back to the seller. I can't buy it because it's my attorney is telling me it's missing this. It can't be cured. Because I'm always thinking in the long run that, in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, I may sell this note off to another investor. And I want to, because the buck stops with me when I buy this note. I want to make sure that collateral file, everything is there 100% intact. So when I sell it to the next investor, they don't have to worry about anything because it's been 100% gone through with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
So I think what he's asking more about when you're at the tape level, when you're making an indicative offer, what makes a note worth making an offer on? What makes it not worth making an offer on?
Oh, I see.
Obviously, state's a big right versus state. I'm presuming you're looking at state. What are the numbers are you looking at to decide if you even bother looking at that asset?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I like notes that are like, typically what I'll do, I'll sift and sort, and then I'll take the principal and interest times 12, or, take the principal and interest minus the servicing cost of, like a non-performing note, $90, whatever, and multiply that by 12. So I'll get my yearly principal and interest, and then I'll divide that by, what I'm going to offer to see what my initial interest rate, my cash on cash is going to be. So if it's like, like the 10s, 12s, 15s, the cream kind of rise to the top, those are the ones that I'm going to start, really looking at. And then I'll start doing a little bit more due diligence, and then looking at the yield to maturity and the IRR, and then all the other stuff, just to make sure, and if I bought it for X, that my yield to maturity is, I like to see at least 13% or higher. And so when I get those, and I'm like, shoot, they look good, everything looks good, it falls within the states that I like, and then everything comes back with like the taxes, everything looks good on the collateral file, send it over to my attorney, he signs off on it, I'm like, I'm all in.
Yeah. Me and Nathan talked about this before, what our things are. We have certain states we look at. One of our first things we look at is interest rates, right? If I'm looking at a performing asset at 3%, there's nothing you can do to get that 3 to a 10. I discount it so dramatically in a yield formula. We bid everything on our IRR, but it's kind of the same thing as yield, but you can't get a 2% to a 10 that easily, right?
Right.
So the big one, if you're creating originating notes, and I know Gene does this kind of stuff. So interest rate's the big one. The state it's in is a big one too, because if you're creating in, say, Florida versus Texas, the time frame is gigantic.
Yep.
Right? You go from 12 months in Florida plus sometimes to 3 to 6 months max kind of thing in Texas to go to a foreclosure, which means that my return can double a year in Texas while I'm waiting for Florida to work it out. So the different variables in the cost differences as well.
Yeah. But and that's the thing, when because you did brought up the interest rates, like the lower interest rates. I actually I bought 6 notes from a mid-size investment firm, and 3 of them, they had low interest rates on them. But I got those at about 30 to 40% of the UPB. So, and it met that yield.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's one of those things where it's right place, right time.
Yeah.
He just wanted to unload, they just wanted to unload them. And that's why, another thing I always do too, is I always ask the persons what their price expectations are, because, if they're telling you 90% and you're coming back at like 60, I'm like, you're just going to be wasting your time. But a lot of times they'll just tell you highest and best, because, they're sifting and sorting from all these other people too. And that's where it's like, even if it's at like a 3%, I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and make my offer and see if it takes. And then here's the other big thing too, is I 100% follow up on all my offers. And it's just like every couple months I'll just follow up, and I use Pipe Drive as my tool, and I have a bunch of swim lanes, and I have a lot of things that like these workflows. So when I move them into different lanes, it'll automate like an email out to my attorney, it'll another one out to the BPO and title work and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I have a task list of things that need to be done.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's awesome. So just going back to the preferences of notes, and I think that's what makes this such a great community, is because we're competing against each other sometimes, but mm-hmm. a lot of the time we're not, because I have preference this way and you have preference that way.
Yep.
And so it allows us to kind of come together and really collaborate, because
yes.
we're not necessarily direct competitors.
Nope.
We sometimes compete on specific assets, but a lot
right.
of the time we don't. And that makes it really fun to be able to get together.
Right.